We're going to call the meeting to order. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
All right, with that then, we're going to welcome the Agency of Transportation. Gary and Rob are going to give us a presentation. And thank you for being here this evening.
Yeah, no problem. Riley, I think you can share your screen. I want you to be very bold. But when she was talking, we had that's going to share. Oh. She should.
Can you see that?
Sure. You can see something. It says public notice.
Oh,
Is that allowed?
Get the wrong
Hold on.
screen, maybe.
it says, hold on. How about that?
There we go.
Okay,
Where should I stand? Is the mic picking up?
You're gonna have to, anybody talking, we'll have to talk right in the mic, we'll try to bring it to you if you can't get up.
Okay.
That's good distance, yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Young. We're here to talk about, I'm going to look this way, you guys just look behind me. We're here to talk about the Plymouth Bridge Replacement Project. This is a pre-closure meeting. So before we have a bridge project, we like to come out in the community and kind of let everybody know what to expect during construction. So next slide, please. So I'm Rob Young. Online tonight, we have Chad Cataldi, who's from Cold River Bridges. They're the contractor that's going to be doing the work. And Seamus Fagan is here. He's a resident engineer from VTrans. He will be on site during construction inspecting the work. And Leah is also virtual. She's the one doing the presentation in the background. And I believe Mike Cruz is also online. He is the program manager from Green International. They are the consultant running the project. And Amanda Oakham here is to my right. She is the design engineer for the project. And these two guys will be presenting. I want to give them, this is Gary. Raj is also from VTrans, and Tom and I. We kind of split, because there's so many bridges here, we kind of split the workload. So Amanda and I are doing the Route 100A bridges, and Gary and Tom are here. Because there's so much going on, in addition to the pre-closure information, we thought it would be good to also talk about the Route 100 projects that are going to be happening next summer. So yeah, we'll talk about the project overview, we'll talk about maintenance of traffic, the project construction schedule, and then Leah has some public information for folks, and how to contact. I want to let everybody know there is a sign-up sheet, so there will be a list of what we call a contact list, and there'll be weekly updates, so everybody can kind of keep progress on what's happening during construction. So if your name's on that list, you'll be involved in that email and get the notices. And time to ask questions. Next slide. All right, so this is a pretty small town, so many folks know where the bridge is. So this is Bridge 9. So it's the 9th bridge from 100A, starting in the village and going out towards Bridgewater. It is 2.95 miles south of the Route 4 intersection. Next slide. So this is an aerial view of the site. There's a lot, the Pinney Brook meanders back and forth through the 100A corridor. And this is one of those bridges going through that corridor. So it's just a satellite view showing the location. Yeah, I'll do the 16 visions. All right, so this is a site we were called out. Of course, folks are aware of the flood event of 2023. So there were a lot of emergency projects that were programmed in the agency. When this one got programmed, it was winter. So we got, I think Mike came out and met me on site, and we actually met with 100A and Tom that winter day, and we went out and inspected the bridges that were just programmed. So this bridge is in a rural major collector. It's a single span concrete slab. It's currently 31 feet long. The ownership is the state of Vermont and was built in 1984. Next. So this is a more recent photo looking north. There was a utility line that crossed diagonally over the structure, and that had to be relocated so that the contractor would have room for the crane in order to construct the new bridge. Next slide. So this is kind of in the stream, looking downstream at the bridge. The current deck rating of the structure is a 7, which is good, and the superstructure rating is good, but the substructure is a 6, satisfactory. And I want to point out here that you are looking in the river, even though all you see is a lot of bridge abutments there. And that's kind of one of the big concerns with this site, is that the bridge doesn't meet the hydraulics for the site. And that's kind of one of the reasons why there was damage during the storm event, is before we say it's hydraulically restricted. Next slide. It is aging a little bit, so that big red line is where the inspectors have highlighted a crack in the abutments. The existing abutments are on shallow foundations, so really the footing is just barely below the stream line there. So if you did have a big scour event, there's nothing preventing material from eroding at the site, so that makes it very scour susceptible. And this is another photo looking at the deterioration and some delamination of the wing wall. It's basically the concrete is deteriorating.
So for the bridge replacement that we are proposing, we're increasing the span length, so the existing was 31 feet. We're increasing it to 49 feet 2 inches. We're keeping the existing out-to-out deck width, which is around 36 feet. That has 11-foot travel lanes with 5-foot shoulders, and it is a 75-year design life, and the total cost came to a little under $3.5 million. So this is our proposed bridge typical section. So you can see the 11-foot travel lanes with the 5-foot shoulders, and then we have a 2-foot curb with that bridge rail. And then our proposed superstructure type is a pre-stressed concrete solid slab with a wearing surface on top of it. And then so here's a plan view of the bridge. So it's kind of hard to tell, but where the stone is where you can kind of see the distant abutment. Used to be a little bit skewed to the river flow, so as Rob said, we were trying to help with the hydraulics, so we realigned the existing, the proposed abutments to be more in line with the stream, as well as increasing the span, which helped us also increase the hydraulic opening. So here is a view of it in profile, where you can kind of see in the brown what the existing hydraulic opening used to be, and then what I proposed is in green. And with that, we also try to keep the vertical alignment so we have less impacts to the abutters that are adjacent to the bridge. So for our methods of construction, we have a combined accelerated bridge construction techniques and conventional bridge construction techniques. So our beams, our approach slabs, and our abutments are all precast units. And then the only thing that is cast in place would be our footings. So here's just a picture of what those precast solid slabs would look like. This is what they would look like in construction, but when the final product is done, they'll have that wearing surface over it, so it'll look like what it kind of looks like today. So the road closure, there is a detour that was chosen and signed by the state. It's gonna be, the road will be closed for 42 days, and the whole end-to-end of that closure is 17.9 miles. And then on the next slide, we'll show kind of what that closure looks like. So in the red, you will see where the bridge is about. So at the intersection of 100A and US 4, to get back down to the intersection of 100 and 100A would be about 11 miles. And then what it typically is 7 miles between those 2 points. So which it adds about 4 miles to the detour. And then, like I said before, from end to end, starting and ending at the bridge, is about 17.9 miles.
So when do we want to start asking questions about this?
Probably, yeah.
At the end of each bridge?
We'll take a break after, well, not break, but we're almost done with this slide.
So prior to that 42-day closure, we're gonna have a single lane closure to install the micropiles. And so this is a picture of kind of what that closure will look like. And during that one lane closure, there is no right of way needed. As of now, the current construction schedule is that the closure work will start in May 12th. That one lane closure will start May 20th. The 42-day closure will start July 7th and end August 18th. And then the whole project will be completed September 19th. The standard work hours during the time will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week. If needed to stay on schedule, there could be longer hours or Saturday work. During the 42-day closure, the hours will be extended from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. and will be for 7 days, the whole. I think that was it, so.
Yeah, so this is a good time to ask questions about Bridge 9 and the construction activities. What do you have for Bridge 9?
Bruce, you go first. You mentioned the travel lane would be 11 feet and the shoulders 5. Is that 11 and 11, 5 and 5?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And that's all one slab?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's 7 precast slabs joined by
Okay.
a closure board.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the rest of the right of way is not right of way. Lanes are not 5 feet now. Is it widening out?
The shoulders, you mean?
The shoulder.
Yeah, I think after it'll narrow back down. Right?
I think the road gets wider as you go north, right at the bridge location. I believe the road changes. Further south, it is narrower. But there's actually quite a bit of right of way, so there was a roadway project in the past, and they widened this bridge to create those shoulders. So it is wider going north.
Right, the shoulders at the bridge are very narrow.
Right now? Yes, I
I
believe.
believe they're pretty wide.
Yeah, was there existing?
We're matching pretty much existing.
Seamus has the existing plans, it probably has the existing, I believe it's the existing floor, which is the more. Any other questions about Bridge 9?
That last slide that you showed, it said, you just said something about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. closure, what was that?
The 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. The work hours.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that after 7 p.m. anything's going to be open.
So can I go back to that slide you showed where the closures are? I want to understand more about this detour you're proposing.
Leah, can you go back maybe one slide?
It's up to stars.
Because 100A is not going to be closed completely.
So the bridge,
Just
at
the bridge.
So if we come down 100A from Bridgewater, 2.9 miles, that's it. And if we come the other way, it's 4 point something miles, if I remember correctly, that's closed too. And you're planning to be closed for 42 days? No passage at all? Okay.
Well, traffic will be detoured along with that.
There's a lot of problems with that. And I'm just not, you guys came out last year and presented this to us, and I was at the meeting. And we asked you all to go back and come up with a different plan. You're coming up with the same plan, with no access. So we got safety issues here. So what if somebody has a heart attack or something on one side of that, and they have to go all the way around, the person's gonna be dead by the time you get there. If we have a fire, the same thing. You can't go down Tailwall Road with any of those trucks. It's not passable. A lot of us can use it in the interim, that's okay. Now I'm gonna start talking about my business. I own a country store down the street. I have a lot of employees who live in Bridgewater and stuff, and they've already told me they're not willing to go that extra 17 miles. It's gonna cost them time, it's gonna cost them money, and a lot of these people live paycheck to paycheck. So what I'm sorely disappointed in is that you're throwing this at us and not giving us a rational reason why we can't put in a one lane for us to get by, which is unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. This will be a death knell for my business because you're hitting right in the middle of the sports season. So, what I'm gonna challenge you all, and I heard from all my elected officials about this, there's something about that old red line. Well, then take some money out of the education tax, which is being wasted all over the place to pay for this. do something else here. This is one of the poorest construction jobs I've ever seen in my life. And I come from Boston, okay? They planned the big dig better than you did this. And we're in a rural area. Now, I'm just gonna be flat out honest with you, you probably don't care about the rest of this stuff here, because this does nothing to give the residents any relief to get from their houses. People who live on one side of the road are gonna have to go 17 miles in 42 days to get to their house. Not acceptable. And this is not the end of this, I'll be honest with you. And I talked to the governor, I talked to the lieutenant governor, and I said, I will look at other avenues, because this is not acceptable. Who's gonna pay my employees extra gas when I start losing them because they're not willing to do another 30, that's a 34-mile-a-day increase for them. That is not acceptable. So somebody needs to go back, and I'll tell you something, guys, you did not do a good job at this. We approached this last year, and now you come back with the same thing. And you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Josh?
Bridges have to be repaired, and I'm fully for it. I know when you get the bridges on 100, you're gonna have 1 lanes there, so that we can get through them. I understand, and none of those are gonna happen, what, next year or 2027? So is this is the only bridge plan for this year?
Bridge 9 is the only plan for this construction.
This has a huge impact on people. And I know Charlie Kimball's here. I'm gonna speak this loud and clear. This is not good.
Right. Oh, excuse me, I think Josh had his hand up. Josh? That's okay, you're next, Pepper.
So, living at Viagus 1782, so I'm literally about a half mile from this bridge, set on the south side of this bridge. It's going to add a 15-minute response time for our ambulance service to arrive. As a member of Woodstock Ambulance, I'm going to be unable to respond to Woodstock Ambulance at this point, to any ambulance calls to assist them. So I'm not going to be able to be on duty on Wednesday nights because I live 30 far away. It's going to take 30 minutes to get around that loop before I get to Woodstock. From where I am right now, it takes me about 14. So now we're losing EMS service, EMS personnel. We have very little response in Plymouth as far as emergency services as it is. With, we don't have a lot of EMTs in this town. Backup fire. We have no access. Who's gonna help us? We're gonna wait for Ludlow, especially if it's on 100A, or Killington. We're gonna wait for one of them. We're not gonna have our closest neighbor in Bridgewater. They're not gonna be able to get to us. There needs to be a one-way, or a temporary bridge put in, a one-way bridge, something. This is not an acceptable plan. It wasn't well thought out.
Pepper?
I was gonna speak to the safety of it. I live right near the bridge on Town Line Road. And I think the safety aspect has not really been thought out properly. If I have a fire, God forbid, at my house, the fire department's not getting there. If I need an ambulance coming from Ludlow, they're not getting there. And, you're really putting people in jeopardy here, and their properties in jeopardy. Why can't you put a Bailey Bridge up, a one-way Bailey Bridge?
Well, so this was an emergency project.
So,
And we wanted to get this project out as soon as we can, and because of the right-of-way that was available to us, this project was kind of picked out and delivered that in as quickly as possible. There is funding for this emergency projects, and so we've been asked to accelerate the delivery. And so typically we would have a longer scoping process where we could hear this out. But because of the emergency nature, we knew we had the right of way. We also knew there was a closure in the past, and we knew that there's 100A and 100A are two viable detours with 4 miles is the difference in length for a bypass distance. And so that's why we kind of went right to the immediate closure as opposed to getting the bridge. I mean, the bridge is more cost for a temporary bridge, but it also is more environmental impacts and more right-of-way impacts, which needs more time. And then we'd be pushing projects out. And because of the 2023 storm, there was a lot of damage in the area. And so we had 6 projects that were on the clock to replace as soon as we can.
I
And
think
so-
people's safety is much more important than thinking about, the time frame or the environment at this point.
And mutual aid is a part of that, and I think you mentioned like where departments cover each other from different directions, and they would follow the detour.
Josh, you had your hand up, and then anybody else who hasn't spoken can follow Josh.
Directly answer a question.
Okay, I want to speak for a minute.
Josh is up and then you, yep.
To have you directly answer a question though, Woodstock Ambulance does provide service to 100A. So they're going to have to go to West Bridgewater. So mind you, that's about 6 miles from the 100A intersection to the 100 intersection. They're gonna have to come down 100, then through the Village of Plymouth, and then up 100A to get to my house. So that is going to be, what, 13, 14 miles extra in response time? How do you justify that to be at all safe? When response times are listed by the state.
Yeah, the thought is other folks, either Bridgewater or from the south would come on.
They don't have ambulance
It's
service.
not gonna work.
They don't have ambulance service.
I think this gentleman.
We will be meeting with emergency services though, separate from this meeting. So hopefully we can work those things out.
So my question is this a fait accompli already? In other words, do you have the ability to take these comments and actually modify this? Or is this cast in stone, so to speak?
So this project that is happening in Bridge 9 is already the contractor that's here tonight, and that's.
Okay, so what we're talking about now doesn't matter. You've already decided it, and that's it. So whatever we say isn't gonna make a difference. That's what I'm hearing from you guys. And that's very disappointing because we have called the Agency of Transportation many, many times and never received a return phone call. Laura Trishman, the head of Historic Preservation, had a call into Agency of Transportation, never got a call back. So did Jamie Duggan, the person who's responsible for buildings for the Historic Preservation, never got a call back. I know that because I'm the Plymouth Cheese Factory, and they come there all the time, and they had no idea of what you guys were doing, and nobody called them back either. So, you know, you've chosen July and August to do this. That is the worst possible months you can do it in terms of local businesses. It is. That is our season. I mean, and that's all right to do it. If you want to compensate me a couple of $100,000 for lost business, I can shut up basically and say, great, knock yourselves out. But no one's going to pay us back any money. And how are we supposed to make payroll? I mean, those are real issues for us. And nobody ever called us back or discussed this at all, period. So I don't understand why that happened. And then again, why are we even here? If this has already been decided, then you're listening to us so we can sort of feel good about it. We're not going to feel good about it, you know? So again, what's the point of having this meeting? To let us know what you guys have decided without our input, without taking into account our concerns and the impact that it's going to have besides the safety issues. You know, we have employees. I'm not going to be able to keep as many people working if we're out that much money. You're going to create unemployment. You're going to do a variety of things which are the direct consequences of what you're doing. So I just don't understand that. And this is also a waste of time. If you've already decided you're going to do it, what's the point of this meeting? To make us feel good? No, because you're not responsive to it. You've already decided what you're going to do. I don't understand that, really. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
This gentleman.
I live by the graveyard, and I don't have as many concerns as these people here, because it's more to their liability. For me, it affects me like going to Shaw's is gonna be added miles in Ludlow. So that being said, all I wanna know, personally, is what's the closing date of the road that I can't use it anymore? And what's the opening date? You indicated 43 days? What 43 days?
So right now it's July 7th
So it's gonna July 7th
to August 18th.
projecting.
Correct.
It could go longer than that.
So we have incentives in the contract, so that the contractor has a big incentive for them to meet our. Yes.
Or better than.
Or better, correct.
July 7th, what do you mean?
Bruce? Bruce got a question.
So there's also a sign-up sheet there for public outreach. So you can be notified of project updates as the closure period gets closer. If you want to sign up.
Will I have to call, will I have to engage with them, or will they send me the memo?
They'll send you the memo if you provide your information on that sheet.
Okay.
So if you folks do want to get notified of construction updates, there is a sign-up sheet.
I wasn't aware of all these different concerns, but they're real, especially the safety issues. And you're not gonna be able to get around that fact that one area of Plymouth is served by Woodstock, another area by Ludlow. And that's by contract, that's not going to change. There's nobody else to fill in these voids. So my question is, why didn't you plan a temporary bridge? And why can't you add that in now? Because that would eliminate all these problems, that simple extra bit.
So why can't we do it today?
Yeah.
Because we have a contract and the contract is based on the plan of doing closure. And the idea of the closure is, and we're not doing this for the whole summer, the idea is that we're condensing it to 42 days and accelerating a normal construction process.
42, so open up another contract for a temporary bridge prior to that. Why not? Why can't you?
That would be funding and a change in scope, but.
And you don't think the
Well,
state is?
we need easements, right, to do that, so we
Yeah.
need permission from property owners and process to do that. And that just would take time.
I have one other question. You know, you're spending $3.5 million on that bridge. You know, in Queechy Gorge, they have a light so you can get through one way or the other. Why not do the same thing on 100A? I mean, you're spending $3.5 million. What's the extra cost for having, you know, a lane that you can get through? $100,000, a couple of $100,000, big deal. Drop in the bucket compared to what you're paying for the stuff. So why not put that in? And that way, everybody's concern is met, period. You know how I found about this, how I found out about this 42-day closure? I found about it because I stopped on way to the cheese factory and the guys were there standing, pounding in a sign. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, we're closing the road. We're gonna close it for 42 days at least." And I said, "When is that happening?" "July and August." I said, "Perfect." You know, I mean, that's, communication is done, but you could solve this entire problem by just putting in the same thing they did to Queechy Gorge. It's a marginal cost compared to what you're spending on this. I mean, honestly, that would solve the problem. We'd all walk away happy. We all would. So, can you do that much? Can you go back to whoever you have to go back and say, "Hey, we need to put in a light. We have to put in a light and get a lane going." You have that ability to do that. Yes or no? It's a very easy question. It's a yes or no answer. Do you have the ability to modify this to put in a light?
So we do have, so what we are allowing the contractor to close down one lane ahead of time.
No, that's not what I asked you. Do you have the ability to keep that road open by putting in a stoplight?
Not under the current contract.
No, you don't have that ability, right? Okay. That is very disappointing. You know, considering the fact that we're here only for whatever reason we're here, I don't know, you know what I mean? But you know, this isn't working for me. You know, I don't need to be placated. You know, I mean, that doesn't work for me at all. I don't think it works for anybody here, quite honestly.
Well, one thing I wanted to say, I know that the summer is a busy time, but the intent is that we're avoiding school time. So it's summer break to avoid the impact due to schools and buses.
No. That's a big mistake.
You're coming up, so many excuses.
Well, that's our
time. No,
Yeah.
no. You guys are construction, right? No.
So before we go any further, is there anybody that has not spoken that wishes to? Because I see a few hands of people that have already spoken. Okay, so Rick and then Bruce.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Your job, you had this chance last fall to take this input that you got out of the meeting and do something about it, and you didn't. You kind of just spit in our face. Honestly, I've never seen such a poor construction plan in my life. And yeah, let's talk about safety first. You talk about time. If there's one death because of this, you guys are gonna be liable for this. I'll tell you right off the bat, all right? You didn't put any concern into the safety of these residents. And Leo and I have two of the biggest businesses in Plymouth. We employ a lot of people. I'm gonna lose about half of my staff. You didn't think about that. So then we got unemployment. Okay? They can't afford to drive 34 miles a day. They can't. It's just the nature of the workforce up here. You didn't take any of this into consideration, which is pathetic. All right? Any good construction manager knows the first people you approach is you go to the residents, and you didn't do it. And like Leo said, the only way he found out is because he saw it on the road. I found out about it because I got a notice about it. There was nothing ever said about closing 100A completely, never. Which I vehemently last fall, you can go look at them and said that's not doable, and you just walk away. So you all should be ashamed of yourselves. And this won't be the end of this. You know, I'll tell you right now, if I have to go to court to get an injunction to stop this, I'll do it. I will honestly do it if you don't go back and get something better there. And that will put this whole thing to a stop. Because this will not be tolerated.
All right, we're going to hear from Bruce, and then we're going to close the discussion on Bridge 108.
I'm thinking pretty much what other people have said, and that is, you were here a year ago, and you heard the concerns and the complaints. And one of them was what it would do to businesses if you shut the road down. Now, I know with your current plan, you can't have one lane open because of the slabs that are going down side to side. So what that tells me is you ignored all the concerns and just went ahead with what you were going to do. And here we are in the same place.
And the intent is, and I know you don't like it, but the intent is, right, accelerated construction is a big impact, right? When you have maintained traffic, it's slow, it's a long time, and it takes longer to develop. But the idea is that we get in quickly, let the contractor have the whole site, and then get out.
But what you're missing is the concern was closing the bridge completely. All you had to do, and I know I'm oversimplifying this, was come up with a design that would allow for one lane open all the time, or include in your contract a temporary river crossing, whatever that might be. So nobody's happy with this.
Understood. Very clear.
What are you gonna do about it?
So we're gonna close the discussion on 108. Now we've got 3 more bridges to go through, but I think we're gonna follow up on this some more.
Another little bit. All right, so I'm gonna talk about the Vermont 100 bridges now, since we've gone through the construction project on Vermont 100A. So these projects on Vermont 100 are currently in the design process. 2 of them are in final design currently, and 1 of them is still in preliminary design. Next slide, please. So I'm Gary LaRoche, I'm the VTrans project manager for the Vermont 100 bridge projects. And here with me tonight, I have Tom Knight from Stantec. He is the project manager for the consulting firm designing these projects. Next slide. So these projects are located on Vermont 100. We'll start from south to north. So Bridge 108 is south of the Vermont 100-108 intersection that the community expressed great concern of at our last meeting last fall regarding the closure at that site. So we have some good news about that project tonight. The bridge to the north of that is Bridge 112 over Tinker Brook. And then to the north of that, we have a bridge on the Bridgewater Plymouth line, Bridge 116. That bridge was destroyed by the 2023 event. Next slide. So I'll turn it over to Tom to talk about the detour routes and individual bridges, and then we can get into some additional information after that.
Okay, yeah, so just trying to focus on, this is similar to what we presented last time. This is the two bridges that are between, West Bridgewater and the 108 intersection are Bridge 116 and 112. What we've done since last time is combine those into a single project. So we get one contractor working on them to be in charge of both schedules. So we don't have to come through with two completely separate closures that aren't coordinated with one another. That doesn't take out the fact that we still have to do these individual projects as closures, that we'll use 100A and at the 100A detour, okay, Route 4 detour. We're trying to limit the length of those closures, but we're going to be in a similar time frame to the project that Rob presented earlier. We do have some time here to do more coordination with emergency services, to talk about perhaps altering the response, as you talked about contracts, or getting different coverage so we could service from either direction with emergency services. Is that?
Time of year is also flexible with the permits that we're requiring for the project. So as you had mentioned that July and August are the critical months for tourism, peak business. If that's something that we want to avoid, those 2 months, then we could do perhaps one of the closures during, May and June, late May and June, and then another one, late, in September or something along those lines. But then you get into foliage season, so it's, what's.
Yeah, part of the difficulty with these two projects is they're both over streams that are somewhat flashy, that when we get heavy rainstorms in the summertime, that they become difficult to work with. And so trying to build those projects in when we're having the snow melt time of year, or in the fall, when after the leaves come off, you can't control the rain then either. So we are a little bit hemmed into doing these, in the summer months. But I think addressing those emergency services concerns, we have time to do that here. If I could have the next slide. So the third project we talked about, the Bridge 108, which is Pinney Brook, is south of the 100A intersection. And when we came to you last time was an idea to close that for 28 days. And we've gone back and looked at that site, and we think we can fit an on-site detour at that location, where to manage the water in the stream, we put in a temporary pipe and build a side road that goes around the construction site. So it would be an alternating one-way detour condition, either with flaggers during the construction time, or traffic lights during non-construction hours, or a combination of those things. So that's the good news, is that at that site we are able to fit in essentially a temporary bypass route that's going to maintain traffic on 100. there'll be delays, and we think the delays through the construction site are gonna be anywhere from 0 to 15 minutes when you're sitting there waiting for that traffic to queue up and waiting for your turn to get through the site. That's important. Okay, next slide.
Can I ask a question just on that, what you just spoke
Certainly.
about? I believe like Woodstock over Queechee has the ability to stop or change the light when they have to go and get through with an emergency vehicle.
Yes.
Is that an ability that we have here?
We can set the lights up for preemption.
Yeah, we can set up the lights, the signals so that they can override them
Okay,
and get through what we need to get through for emergency services.
thank you.
That's the calling service, the same as what you got in the Bridge Works, where you rate your dispatch calls and has the light changed over. Same idea.
We can have that written in the contract where preemption is going to be required as part of the signal package that's installed. It's been done on other agency projects.
So let's say, I know that's the process with the Bridge Works project, so.
Okay, so what we gave you was the traffic impact information up front, and then I do have some slides that explain, the existing conditions out there and what we're trying to accomplish with the construction project. So I'll go through those rather quickly. I think the traffic impacts are definitely more important to you folks. But at Bridge 108, Pinney Brook, what we're really doing there is with a landslide up on the hill. I mean, it's a slow-moving landslide. We're continually getting gravel pouring out of that brook, and especially during these big storms, big slugs of debris come down and block that bridge. And when that happens, the water doesn't have anywhere to go. It dams up on one side of it, and it's caused massive erosion damage. It damages the road. It puts the road out of service for many days when we have those bigger events. And what we're trying to do is make the road itself more resilient. We're doing, next slide, please.
What I can say is I think we're very appreciative that you're able to keep a lane open. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you.
So this site plan, putting back the roadway more or less like it is now. That we're not going to make things wider, make huge improvements to the geometry of the road. But what we're intending to put back is a structure of the road by protecting the banks of the road that's less resilient to that flood damage when things happen, and adding a lot of auxiliary drainage along that route so that the water has someplace to go when that happens, and we can get in there and clean things up and get the road open more quickly. So for the construction project, this graphic tries to show that little side route that we've identified on the upstream side. This is actually how the bridge was built back in the 80s. Was they put in some temporary pipes on the upstream side and deterred traffic while they built that bridge. So no closure there. Next slide. So the next site, Tinker Brook, is a small, 11-foot pipe culvert that's pretty severely undersized. We're replacing it with a concrete box culvert to improve resiliency. It's basically hydraulically driven is the reason. The existing structure is in bad shape and has suffered flood damage in the past. So we think it's appropriate to change it out now. We're able to do that kind of project with a 14-day closure. I know that 14 days is difficult, but in comparison to a phased project where we did that in pieces to try and keep the road open, it would take all summer to do that. So we're trying to rip the Band-Aid off and get it done quickly, rather than have a construction project going on the entire summer at this site. Next slide, please. So this graphic shows the proposed improvements there, and for the public, they aren't going to see much of a change. For the stream's going to see a much wider opening. And so it's going to be much less susceptible to flooding. Next slide, please. Okay, the other site that Gary mentioned is on the Bridgewater Plymouth town line. So we actually refer to this as a Bridgewater project. There's an existing temporary bridge there right now. There was one of those metal pipes there, and it was completely washed out during the storm. So we're trying to put something back in there that's resilient. It suffers from similar problems to the Pinney Brook site. Like there's lots of aggregate that moves down from upstream and can clog structures easily. So we're gonna put in a good sized bridge there. It's gonna be a 60-foot span bridge. We're actually planning to realign the stream a little bit, and give more room to store that material when it comes down, so we can clean it out without disrupting the road. The next slide will show that. So the idea of this design is to channelize the river a little bit more where it wants to go naturally, and to provide a fan area downstream of the bridge where we can clean out the aggregate once it's washed down. Again, the impacts of the construction, I know that's the big concern, is the traffic. So right now we're looking at a 45 to 60 day closure at that site. I think we'd like to hear if there are ways to make that more palatable. Time of year.
And the reason
We're gonna
that's
talk to it for emergency.
Yeah, the reason that there's a range in it right now is because we're still in the design process. We've performed the geotechnical investigation or subsurface investigation to understand what the foundation requirements are gonna be for this bridge. And there's a lot of large boulders, large cobbles and boulders, so it makes it very difficult to put those H-piles or big beams, vertical beams in the ground. So it's gonna take additional time to perform that drilling in order to put those foundation piles in the ground. And there's some uncertainty on how long that's gonna take. So through the design process, providing you a range of duration is more appropriate than trying to commit to an exact duration at this point in time. So that's why there's a range at this very point.
So before we, Greg Markowski is here and Jeremy also from Markowski Excavating. Do you mind, do you have anything you'd want to share about that, Greg, that closure, how that's going to impact your business down at the?
We have the stone quarry down there on Route 100, just half a mile from that bridge. It's gonna have a huge effect on us with being closed for 40, you're telling us 45 to 60 days now. I've had conversations with local towns here, the town of Plymouth, town of Killington, Craig Mosier, ourselves, the Killington ski area, of the effect that it's gonna have on them. This is proposed for like 26, I'm told.
26, that's correct.
That's at a time when the Killington ski area is supposed to be starting their major expansion projects, which is, we've waited 25 years for this project to happen. I don't want to be shut down for 60 days in the prime time of that construction season. We've also spoke with Jeremy Reed from VTrans to have a conversation. I know this was early in the project, to see what is there provisions for a temporary bridge to be put in there, with one lane with signal lights to allow traffic to go back and forth, not only to our quarry, but to the local residents here, the JU from Farm and Wilderness. I know it's a concern for you, the other people here as residents as well. I had the conversation with him, he said that at that point there was no provisions for it. So I've gone and I've met with members of the Transportation Committee, and they brought it to Jeremy, Joe Flynn, those people in VTrans as well, to see if there's something that we can do. Spoke with the Lieutenant Governor on this. His comment was, well, let's put in some skidder bridges to make something work. We're all Vermonters, we're creative, we've been creative through all the flooding to get access to people and materials and that. I know it's a tight consideration. Hopefully, maybe we can do it with some bigger culverts as a while the construction is going. Hopefully it's a low flow water. I have called into Josh Cardival to see if by chance there's any sizing that could be done for the temporary construction. I have not heard back from him yet. But it's a concern for the whole area here. You know, we, in conversation that, with Matt Walker, the chairman of the Transportation Committee, he says that there's no temporary bridges available. They're all they're used other places in the state. Maybe it's time we buy another temporary bridge or two to accommodate these constructions, or come up with some type of solution. I mean, we're all creative here in this room. We're all creative in Vermont. We've survived these floods with impact, but minimal loss of life, and we've all gone and helped each other out. And I think we're probably at that point because it's affecting everybody in this room.
In response to conversation, you reached out to Josh Carnival. The river management engineer in this area is actually Scott Jensen. And the design team has worked with Scott Jensen pretty extensively in the design of the channel of this project to assure that it's meeting all of the river management engineer's requirements. As Tom had mentioned, in the big concern, of course, upstream is sediment, coming down and clogging up this site. So we wanted to make sure that, in the design, this resilient design, we can pass that sediment through this area and downstream of the structure. So to kind of explain the extent of the project limits. This site, or the existing bridge was destroyed. The existing bridge was a 6x11 culvert similar to what we have at Bridge 112, Tinker Brook. It is an identical culvert, but it was overwhelmed due to the sediment flow coming down through here, thus warranting a much larger structure to be resilient in the future.
I guess I'm just saying, there's the construction phase, if something temporary like that could be put in to allow access, for the construction time.
So this temporary bridge was actually purchased from a contractor.
I helped put it in.
Since a lot of other temporary bridges were being used during the emergency event around the state. This generally when a temporary bridge is installed, a second one isn't installed during a project to keep the road open. There are buildings on both sides of the road there. So, and the road is rather steep, has a steep grade to it. Trying to avoid impacts to those properties and, of course, the proximity to those buildings. It was most preferred to stay on alignment.
I've taken some measurements from the right away of the state there. On the north end, there's 36 feet from the property line to the edge of pavement. And on the north end, there's 32 feet to the edge of pavement. So I guess just, I'm trying to help out and keep everybody going here because this has a huge impact. Is it just as a wild ass guess? Is it possible to take that bridge that's right there and just set it over at the edge of the right of way? I don't know, just trying to think outside the box to solve the problem for everybody. I don't know, that's a consideration.
We built some pretty big projects. I think you probably have a pretty good idea, Greg, right? You just rebuilt the Killington Road down there.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to, help everybody in the room here, and the state as well. So maybe there's issues with the property owners or the residents here in town, so.
Just to clarify what we're talking about now, there's a temporary bridge there on the site right now. And our new bridge overlaps with that temporary bridge a little bit. So if that temporary bridge were built off to the side somewhere and everyone was going through there on a little, loop-de-doo right now and staying away from the actual future construction site, that would be ideal, because then we could put the new bridge right where we want it to go. But right now, the project that we're trying to do, first step is going to take out the temporary bridge and then start building in the real estate you want to build on. And maybe adding an interim step where you take the temporary bridge out for a short time and then move it somewhere, establish it in a new location, and then try and build your permanent project.
So we got Lee and then Bruce and then Josh had a question.
At least for me, with the mention of road closure and time of dates, I at least go back to the mess in 22 or 23 when that box culvert was done north of Woodward Reservoir, and what was supposed to be a month and a half ended up more like 3.5, 4 months. So I think that may be some of the underlying anxiety here. And because it was a poor, as I understand, a poor contractor who was involved. So at least for me, that's my gut reaction, like, oh goodness. But in this conversation with removing a bridge, could you do what we did at Mission Farm Road and East Mountain Road, where you did have that little tiny slip, both of which got flooded in the 23, 24. And the other point of clarification is in all of these bridges, we're talking about horizontal pieces rather than long spans. So the bridge on 100A is like this temporary bridge where there are pieces that are put in, they're short horizontal pieces that are parallel to the stream, the pre-made pieces, and they're all.
The pieces that you're talking about, like back in the photo, they span the whole structure.
Right.
Span the river.
Yeah, this way, not that way. Anyway, there are 3 points in my comment. One is just a gut reaction. The second is, can you do something like what you did on Route 4 between Mission Farm and East Mountain Road, which was to have that parallel bridge next to the construction. And it was a very short little detour, but obviously essential because the whole idea of shutting down Route 4 in the summertime. And then the third one was just a point of clarification about how these bridges are.
I can speak to the first one. I was the project manager of the unfortunate schedule that was kept by a contractor that did not do very well. This was their second project that they did with VTrans. So we gave them a shot and COVID hit. And so the combination of those two, it was not good. We've had several successful accelerated bridge projects. Cold River Bridges that I mentioned has been doing accelerated bridge projects in Eastern Vermont since 2010. They've been very successful at meeting those closure deadlines. And these are bridges and bridge closures. The project in Plymouth was buried structures, but it was a large buried structure for that, too large for that particular contractor. But we do have a good contractor on board for the 100A bridge, and we have the incentives in place for them to meet those dates or beat those that 14 days.
So we have Bruce, Josh, Brandon, did you? And then Greg again. Yep.
I don't want to be too long-winded here, but first I'd just like to say how impressed I am with how calm Mr. Markowski was in speaking to you, and I know he's seething inside. You are doing these projects in a time frame that works for you because of construction issues. Think about his business, it's exactly the same, and you're cutting off everybody to the north of him. No longer can get to him. Those 10-wheelers aren't going to be going down Route 4, up over 100A, down the steep road, back onto 100 to go up to him and then repeat that. That's not going to happen. you were here last fall and you heard the concerns then about not closing the road. And it's like it went in one ear and out the other. Where is your plan to keep the road open? It doesn't exist. You could do that in a multitude of ways. Putting in a temporary bridge comes to mind, but you'll say, oh, we have to go through the process of getting permissions from homeowners. But I'll bet you didn't attempt it. And as far as figuring out a bridge structure that could, during the process, keep one lane open, I'll bet you didn't spend too much time figuring on that either, because you're talking about exactly what you were talking about in the fall. So, I mean, that's just pitiful. It's just pitiful that you have such little respect for the residents of an area where you're going to be working. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry,
Don't apologize, please.
go right on.
Josh?
So I was gonna say that, you know, the one thing I will give your presentation versus the first one is that you do have an idea of how to keep roads open for emergency services, and you are thinking about that. I will give you that much credit. I just wanted to tell you that, so thank you.
And then Brandon? And Greg?
I thought Greg had a good question, and I just want to wait for the answer. What is the constraint that makes it impossible to make a temporary bridge in any of these cases?
Time and money.
Yeah.
Yeah, primarily. Yeah.
I think we'd all wait till 2028 or 29 till one of those became available.
Rush.
And I mean, I do question whether how these other bridges that look worse, for example, one right here, with the landslide, how that is more important than the one on 100A where I drive across it every single day. And looking at the pictures, it didn't look anywhere near as bad as the one up here that has a landslide across it. So there's also that.
So, to speak to this particular project, a little bit more, the proposed bridge, and you could probably talk about it a little bit more fluently, Tom, but the proposed design of this project requires us to raise the grade of the road slightly to get that hydraulic capacity. So in increasing the height of the road, and trying to chase this slope out makes the project very, very large. So installing, another temporary bridge or, more measures to maintain traffic just extends project limits all that much further. Because you're chasing those slopes down the hill, and it's a pretty steep grade down through there. I can't recall, Tom, but it's like along the lines of 8%.
Yeah, I think the stream is at 10% grade, but all of those things are possible, but they do, like, you're trying to build two bridges now. And right now, this is a site where it's difficult to fit that one bridge within the land we have to work with. And now we're trying to fit two in there. I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, I think with enough money and enough time, all things are possible. You can do some pretty amazing things. But we are charged with trying to do this in an economical fashion also. Everyone knows that the state doesn't have infinite funds to even leverage the federal dollars that are limited.
Well, they have it, they're just spending it wrong. That's the problem.
Well, so I guess my second question was, and guys, I just say thanks, I get what you're doing, so I see that, and thank you for doing your best. Can you do stuff here in April and November?
April's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really,
April's tough.
Yeah. But late season is a possibility. I think not for everybody, right? For quarry, it's not so seasonal. But But in the good weather, we're doing construction, tourists are coming and going. So to the degree that you could get stuff closer to winter on either side, it would help us all quite a bit.
Yeah, we have done projects that start, after Columbus Day, or after, or middle of October.
Sweet.
But the stream folks don't love that, us working that time of year. No leaves on the trees, and that rainwater just goes right into the river. So for construction folks, Gary and Sheree can speak to this too, like, you're pushed that late in the season, and the construction folks are putting their work at risk if a big storm comes through. So if they're going to build a bridge foundation in October, and any amount of weather can cause that bridge foundation to be flooded, they need to bid a very high price to account for that risk. And so we pay, big money to try and, mitigate that risk, but the contractor ends up charging a lot of money for it. That's what we're fighting against with the November type construction.
What's gonna happen to the residents that are between Tinker Brook and the Lower Bridge? How are they gonna have access to get out if the same company is doing closure at the same time?
They'll be required to maintain access out of that sort of in between spot.
Just for those folks, though.
They won't be closing bridges at the same time.
They won't close the bridges at the same
They
time.
will not.
Okay.
No.
I was just thinking about how I was going to get groceries. Thank you.
Are you everything there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like we have another.
Yeah, so one of the concerns that you raised about the reason why you're being able to install temporary bridges is time. So how immediate are the safety concerns of the bridges themselves, right? Because, you mentioned, we might wait until 2028. So how immediate are the actual concerns of the existing structures that make the timeline a safety problem due to the existing structures, not just when the money is available?
I can speak for the two or the three bridges that we spoke about last. So, Pinney Brook, that's the one that is in front of the landslide. So we don't make any time predictions about that. The structure that's there is fine. So that one's kind of off the table as far as that question goes. Bridge 116, which is the Bridgewater one where we have the temporary bridge in place. That temporary bridge doesn't have a lot of clearance over that stream, but it's sized equivalent to the structure that was there before. I would say it's not that risky. It's not that immediate from a timing standpoint. And Tinker Brook is also not that immediate from a timing standpoint. We're not worried about these things collapsing or having a load reduction because they can't carry the loads anymore anytime in the next few years. But there are funding concerns with, federal funds that have been spoken for by these projects that we want to take advantage of. And I don't know how long those funds can wait on.
Yeah, so we have our normal formula funds, right? We get over
Okay.
over $100 million a year in formula funds, which is like the standard funds that we get every year for our projects, right? But now that we had this event, right, we have emergency recovery funds, right? So those funds kind of push all those other projects out, and now we're on the clock to say, all right, here's all the emergency projects, get them out, because we got to spend this money before we can spend our formula funds.
And how unsafe is it
So-
to run 100 million?
100A, the primary reason for replacing those two is resiliency, right? And so they're thinking long-term emergency. The idea is to replace those bridges because you have a undercutting of the stream, right? It's not scour, it is scour susceptible now. And so if we replace that with a longer bridge and with deep foundations, you're gonna have a much more resilient structure.
So we
You're just safe.
have a question from Rick, Frank, and then Greg had his hand up again, and then Josh.
So my comment is this, You've heard from our taxpayers. I don't think I have to remind you that these taxpayers pay your salary. So my question to you is this. Are you willing to go back to your design team? You have a year before this project is shovel ready. Are you willing to go back to your design team and consider options about keeping a lane or temporary bridge in place so people can function? Are you willing to go back to your design team?
Certainly, yeah, we'll,
Okay, okay,
we'll discuss it with VTrans leadership.
okay. Then are you willing to come back 30 days from now and tell us what the options are?
If that's what the direction from VTrans leadership is to do, that's what we will do.
Okay. How do we make that happen? How do we get a commitment?
We'll follow up shortly after this meeting, within a week or so.
Okay.
So we can have
Will you communicate to this board, to our chair, to Jay, on the progress of that?
Sorry, could you repeat the last thing?
Will you communicate to this board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The team will communicate with the board.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Can VTrans leadership come here? Why do they send you guys all here to, take the firing squad? They send you here to relay the information. Why can't they come down and tell us?
As project managers of the bridge projects, that is our function to deliver the program.
I understand that, but
So that's why we're here. But if it necessitates that VTrans leadership attends a select board meeting, that's something.
Absolutely.
That's
We're not the decision makers. We want the decision makers. That, I don't want to influence. You guys keep talking, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Time and money, it's not acceptable, and you need to do something. We're still talking about the 100 acres. It's not acceptable. None of these plans are acceptable to anybody in this room. And we'll contact our elected officials. I'll get on the phone with the governor again if I have to. But this is not gonna go forward. In its current state, none of it.
So we have Frank's turn. Sorry, this way. Frank's right here.
When you say there's no immediate danger of any of these bridges failing, are you referring to normal seasons, or are you talking about an Irene or a 2023 level rainfall?
Normal circumstances.
Well, the concern here is, I would think Irene or 2023 type storms. Because if one of those comes and these fail, all this talk about, everybody's gonna be coming running to you saying, build this faster. So to say they're not, just to poo-poo Pinney Brook and say it's not an issue, because it's not gonna fail, well, it's gonna fail the next storm we get that has 8 inches of rain in 12 hours. So to me, that's a serious issue. I know why you're saying this, but to trivialize the safety of these things, I hope there's a reason that's more urgent than just the money's available now. Because this town depends on those bridges being operating for us to function. Otherwise, we're dead in the water. No pun intended.
So primary purpose for Bridge 108, Pinney Brook, was sediment transport from that upstream landslide. That's really what the urgency is, to try to make the road resilient to, remain functional so you can maintain that infrastructure, major infrastructure system during emergency.
Yeah. I might be
So
worth
that's-
backing up to that slide, just to
Yeah,
reiterate that, so, Lee, if you could, I think it's before this one. Back, 2 more. 1 more. That's the one.
So,
Yeah. That's the one right there, thank you. So there's no doubt that that site is a difficult site for us to solve, even with improvements there. I mean, we aren't gonna stop that landslide from happening, and
I realize that, but to me, to say that that's not an immediate danger is almost irresponsible. Because every time it rains now, we have a problem with water being muddy and screwing up our lakes. And as somebody who lives downstream, I'm in fear that it's gonna You already had a house destroyed, and for you to, I mean, I appreciate you doing this work, it's great, but the only thing that tweaked me was that you say that there's no immediate danger here. I think
Well, and I'm sorry.
every river,
So-
every bridge in Plymouth is an issue.
You're correct, and I apologize for that. And I was thinking it in terms of the structural vulnerability of the bridges and the way we think we design for a certain timeline, and these bridges are designed with a risk involved. We can't design every bridge to pass an Irene type storm. Like an Irene type storm will, with most designs, will damage the road, and we hope doesn't take out the bridge. And it's there so we can put it back together after. And I think that's the case with Money Brook, the way it is now. If a certain storm is gonna damage Money Brook. And our work that we're planning to do is gonna make that damage less. So that's why I was saying the timing isn't as crucial, because Mother Nature can essentially do what she wants with that one. And in the other locations, we're talking about hydraulic improvements. So there's a risk associated with any big storms coming through.
And Bridge 116 also has a similar but smaller sediment source that's upstream that contributes to clogging up that site. So if you had a Irene level storm, come through that Bridge 116 area, you would clog up that bridge, and that bridge would likely be compromised.
So we had a question from Greg and then Pepper.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna say, you're, talking about the foundations for this 116 bridge. I know there's huge boulders in that, where those abutments are going, there's 8-10 yard boulders, maybe bigger.
Yeah.
And if you go and try to establish a foundation of piles, it's gonna be a long process, so.
We're gonna pre-drill them.
Gonna be probably all the more reason for a temporary bridge or a way to get through there. I mean, it's already gone from 45 to 60 days now, and has the potential to go a lot longer because of that. And I appreciate your people's time and that, and I would be glad to sit down with you or anyone in VTrans to have more conversations if you wanted to.
With large enough equipment, the tooling to perform that drilling, it should be able to be performed within a reasonable time frame.
We have worked that pre-drilling into the construction schedule estimate right now. But there's still some uncertainty in that.
So Bridge 116 is, we're in the final design phase right now, so we're really starting to get into the fine tuning of those, the critical path method schedule and understanding construction sequence and nailing down durations. And what can be performed before the closure, what can be performed after the closure, to make the most efficient closure and shortest closure that we possibly can.
Pepper, did you have?
Yeah, if you're gonna come back in 30 days or whenever, I think it would be very nice of you all to have a safety plan in place that you can share with the residents here for all your projects.
Yeah, it's the same, you're getting the same comments for every bridge. So that's what you try, and you can go back and, I don't even want to hear anything about the other two right now, or whatever's left, because we're gonna have the same comments again. There's no impact assessment, or risk assessments, which is what all good construction projects do, is you do your risk assessment up front, and we've got to see it. And then I want to see one. And the economic impact, you need to research that hugely.
Josh?
So, I guess at this point, the other two bridges that are on the 100 bridges aren't as big of a problem, we have 30 days. The 100A project, you're starting in a matter of already starting it or starting it in the near future. That is the one that I think is gonna be the biggest issue to the town of Plymouth and to the residents of Plymouth. If you live on 100A, you are going to be trapped as far as getting any kind of emergency services. What is the repair? What is the fix that we're gonna do to fix this situation? It doesn't seem like you have answers. You're not really willing to give us any answers. You're just kind of standing there saying that this project's happening. And as a state employee, myself, if I went to a state building and said that, I would get told I couldn't do the project. So,
Yeah, so there is an emergency coordination for this project, it just hasn't happened yet. So that we intend to meet with emergency folks as part of this project.
is that gonna change the timeline if they say it's not feasible?
We're gonna have to have a meeting with them. And see.
Because I'm telling you right now from an EMT in the area that it's not feasible. It's impossible for you to add 20 minutes response time to any ambulance response from Woodstock to what covers all of 100A. They're going to have to go all the way to West Bridgewater, come down 100, and then go up 100A for whatever scene they're going to. The 100 projects aren't as detrimental because it's not that big of a deal to come down 100A to go to a house that's on 100. But you're not going out of your way. With the 100A project, you're going out of your way to go west another 6 or 7 miles, and then coming around. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to just highly advise you to go back to the board, to your boss, and be like, this can't work this way. Whether it's what he mentioned, a Skinner Bridge or some kind, something where you can get around that bridge. There has to be a way. You've got fields that are right there. There's definitely a way. Maybe a tough conversation and a tough sell to the person that owns that section of land. But when you say it's the only way we're gonna be able to give your neighbors any way out or emergency services any way to get to your neighbors, I'm pretty sure they'll work with you. I mean, ask Rick. Rick was there when that bridge had its issues during the 23 flood. You and I were both standing there.
Yep.
And we figured it out.
Yeah.
There's a way to figure it out. I feel like the way you presented this tonight was, this is gonna happen, rather than, hey, help us figure out how to make this happen.
Right, and that is to do with the schedule, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have the opportunity to come to you sooner. But the nature of the emergency project did kind of lead us down this path. But there is, I mean, you definitely want to coordinate with emergency services.
You had the chance.
I think you're gonna have to have
Right here last fall.
plan with a temporary bridge. That's the only way.
So if I could, I'm in a similar boat as Greg. Like we earn 90% of our revenue in June, July, August, and September. So if there's any way to think about either temporary bridge or some way we can work that a little bit differently. You know, we hire 175 seasonal staff, and this could affect, shut us down.
Just a quick comment to add to what Josh was talking about. If you're talking about an emergency plan, it's really important that you include the town in those conversations because, for example, you may sit down with your group or even some emergency staff and think you're going to go around Hale Hollow Road, but you don't know that there's road closures planned for Hale Hollow Road this summer until you include the town in those conversations, because there are 3 bridge projects on that road and some of them are going to require road closures, and you won't know that until you include the town in those conversations. So I would urge you to include the town. Okay?
Sorry, I do want to add to that. There's multiple of us who are on the emergency services here, and I think where you're already planning the closure, whether you had any intention of contacting any of us from the fire department, don't you think it's a little late at this point with everything already in place? And obviously Josh has a good point. Is the state willing to put crew on staff, paid staff, on call through this project to have people in place? Because whether it be if you want to pick up a shift from Ludlow, an ambulance, or people from Woodstock to be on call, but the time delay is not acceptable and very bad I go back to this other stuff, and business is a key thing, but we're about life safety and just very poor. I mean, if it was your elderly parents there and stuff, would you have a different thought for your kids? And so again, when is the call coming to the fire chief or head coordinator of EMS of what you're gonna do?
Yeah, so as a part of the contract, we worked with emergency services, but again, it's like, it just hasn't happened yet.
If we parked all our cars and stood on the bridge there, would you have to have us removed to do the work, or would something change? I mean, would you arrest us? And if we stood on the bridge down there and said, you're not closing it until you find an alternative way?
I don't know how to respond.
Well, I'm just saying, it's, people have strong opinions here, and
Sure.
you're clearly not. It's more about, you talk about money and what works good for you as a state who's overly funded with grant money. These are small businesses here that can't function, but you don't care. You don't, and you come in here, do any of you live here in town? Do any of you live in town?
No.
Of course not. So insultive to come here with this.
The bottom line is, you knew all this last fall. You heard all these same arguments and complaints last fall, and here you are again. It's a done deal. You know what you're gonna do, just like you probably did back then. And you don't act as if you give a damn about what the residents need. Not just want, but need to survive. It's pitiful what the people have done, or absolutely didn't do.
So I'd like to point out, thank you, Representative Charlie Kimball for being here, and also Senator Joe Major. If there's anything you would like to add to this conversation, we'd love to hear from you. If not, that's okay too.
Sometimes the smartest thing a politician can do is say nothing. Just listen. So I will say, I know the town feels like they didn't have a fair hearing or didn't get listened to. These folks do work hard for the state of Vermont, and they have some constraints around them. So could the plans be changed? So if there is something that's possible, great, then we can make that happen. But they do work hard, and they're, I think, loyal to the state and loyal to
I want to echo what Charlie said. I am, quite frankly, distressed by the emergency service part of this. The economic part of it is also distressing, but in particular, the emergency service part of it. When I asked that I'm included on the emergency meeting, I think it's important to have you at the table as well. You are much, obviously, closer to it and know more specifically than we do. So that's important. I'm always going to be honest with you. I don't know what we can do right now, but I will try, and then Charlie will as well. We've been discussing this for since we knew that we were going to come here to try to help you as best we can. One of the things that has come out more than anything is the communication. And we have to communicate to you on a continual basis where we're at. I have spoken, and one of the things that I appreciate is that there were some business owners that communicated to me as well, and I've tried to go back and forth. I was not elected when this was started, but now I'm in it. I'm here, and we're gonna try to see what we can do.
So I think we're ready to conclude our hearing on the bridges. Thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order, please.
There you go, I heard you now.
And Bruce, you are up on the town plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for
We starting? We starting?
We're restarting.
Okay.
That's right. We all want to hear Bruce give us the update on the town plan.
Okay, well, I'm not very good at that.
Oh, it locks, yeah.
I got it. Okay, recently I received an email from Kyle Hansen of Two Rivers notifying me and us in general that the town plan in place runs out in 2027. So we have to get going on the town plan. We've done it 5 years ago, and we're all no stranger to it. So we're going to have a meeting on the 10th of June with Kyle Hansen, and he's going to run through it all and tell us what we need to be doing, and he's going to be helping out a great deal. There's a few things on the current town plan that I thought I'd bring up, though. In every section, it ends in recommendations. And one of the recommendations was to adopt a policy to discourage any derelict or abandoned buildings deemed non-habitable, the specifics to be addressed in a zoning ordinance. Now, there's a couple of houses and buildings that we're all familiar with that are, at this point, derelict, they've been uninhabited. And something needs to be done to prevent this from becoming an ongoing situation. So I'm going to try and get this going at the planning and zoning meetings and see if we can come up with something. Ludlow has an ordinance now. I have a copy of it. It's 10 pages long, so it went through legal and everything that it had to go through to get where it was. And I think that that'll be a good template. Another recommendation, and I believe this was tried at one point, but it's to promote and expand farmers markets and community gardens, along with encouraging local gardeners to share overabundance, figure out some distribution site, and organize delivery to local residents who don't drive. I think that that would be a pretty fantastic thing to do. We're going to look into that. And one possible addition that's never been recommended before would be a policy toward short-term rentals. And I know we've all had conversations about this, but if it's something that we can insert into a town plan and perhaps add some sort of an ordinance that specifies what areas are suitable for short-term rentals, how many can there be in an area, density and such. As everybody's aware, this is one of the biggest issues within the state. And so many of the short-term rentals are owned by out-of-staters. So essentially, they're a business. They're a money-making project where they buy up a property or more than one and rent them out in this manner. The housing shortage in Vermont, whether it's rentals in particular, is the biggest impediment to business and keeping young people in the state. So something has to start happening along those lines, and I think we should be looking at that. But mainly, I just wanted to let you know where we were and the fact that we have to get going on this. Two Rivers will be very helpful in working towards getting us grants to pay for this. They do charge. I don't know what they charge yet, but they're pretty fair. Yes?
Yeah, I think it was the 2008 town plan, circa. They had surveyed residents to, learn about what was important to them. And that is going on 20 years now. And I remember some tenets of that were like people like the open space and the rural character of Plymouth. That this is a new, relatively new emerging issue is these short-term rentals, and I'd really love to get like a gauge of where people are on that, you know, so if we said, hey, you know, I'm concerned about Plymouth, Ludlow's now 93% second homes.
Right.
Right, and I mean, I have concerns about Plymouth, looking like that, so anyway, I think the short answer is I think a survey could be very helpful just in understanding what residents and voters, you know, would like to see the town look like.
Well, that's something we should talk about at our next meeting, planning and zoning. Along with this whole process, there will be more than one public hearing where people can come, you know, after we go through the process of looking at the town plan and come up with a, what do you call it? Not the template, but the yeah, we will be having meetings where people can, you know, have their input. But the survey idea, we should look at that.
And Rick, didn't you do a survey when you first came on the select board?
We did, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can be done. It was a mailing, I believe. Yeah, with a return envelope. We got a pretty good response.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could work on together with planning commission and the select board, and I think we're game.
Those are all good ideas. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get good.
All right, next order of business is to approve and inform residents of the TriQuest Gravel Triathlon, which I read, and this is scheduled for 50 to 100 athletes. A lot of bike riding, Saturday, September 6th. No road closures, just slowdowns, I think.
Looks like fun. What do they need from us, Bruce? I mean,
I think
Jay.
just a motion to approve it.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second. We're all in favor.
In favor.
Does one of these have to be signed at all? No. Okay. All right. Our next thing is to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, April. Oh, before we go any further, Rick, I appreciated you asking the VTrans representatives to get back to us in a specific amount of time. That was
Try
a
to
really
force the issue, you know?
really good action item. Just regardless of the response,
Yeah.
we're going to get one. So
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I hope so. I'll be really disappointed if we don't. Something. Anything.
Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, April 28th.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's this copy to sign.
Yep.
Citizen comments. Don't have any. I think we got those earlier. Update on the AARP grant. That's me. They don't accept applications until January for those speeding signs, the community grant. So, and they give you a notification in March. So if we want to move sooner, we'd probably pay for them ourselves. So we want to hold to see if we can get the grant. It would be January application.
Do you remember how much they were?
They were a broad spectrum. I can check with Teresa, see how much those were, the ones that she sent, but it could be from like, 3,000 to 6,000 depending on.
Yeah, we need two, right?
Correct.
So we should start thinking about the budget in the next 3 or 4 months. We should budget for them maybe, and then if we get a grant, all the better.
I like that.
Okay.
That works.
All right, sounds good. Discussion on the Kingdom Road paving grant.
Is that the one that was denied?
Yeah, I just we were curious about it.
I think they've denied us last couple of years of paving grants. And I don't know, in the past, we've been getting one maybe every other year, or something close to that, but it seems the last few years we've been denied our paving grants. So, I guess we'll have to put it on hold and try it again next year.
Maybe they're just getting low on money, or they, all right.
I don't know.
Review and approve the local emergency plan for 2025. I've read it, I don't have any questions. I don't know, Angela, you've probably seen it as well.
Seen it, good.
Okay. Dave, you prepared it?
I did.
Okay.
Right, you sent me back an email saying you didn't have any comments on it.
Right. Then I would make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll sign it.
So, on that, there's an adoption form, you just sign it.
Yep. There was a sign and a print. I think that's it. Do you want to check it out? I think we got it. Got it. Okay.
And then, I don't know how you want to do that, but we need another signer.
I can just do. All right.
Actually, once that's done, can I have that? Because I need to submit it.
Talking about here, because this is printed name J.
Yeah, so you'd have to do it there. It threw me off.
Oh, just over top of it?
Yep.
Oh, I see what's going on.
Another page.
Sure. They got a fresh page for us, Rick.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's what I get.
Do you want to make a copy of that? Or-
Thank you. Thanks for your work on it. We have to approve a change to the credit card policy.
Yeah, and I'd like to see one change made. And it says, you get that notice?
Yes.
The credit card used by the town is M&T Bank card with a limit of $15,000. It's fine. Authorized users may charge up to $750 without prior approval, and I would like to change that notification to the treasurer or town clerk. So there's only 2 people authorized to use the cards, or maybe 3, clerk, the treasurer, and our highway foreman.
So I scratched it out, wrote notification. Is that
I knew that's what he wanted,
Okay.
yes, but.
okay? All right. Did you make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve it as modified.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Right.
And that brings us to other business, which I don't think we have any. So signing warrants, reviewing mail. Possible next select board meeting is June 2nd.
Okay,
Sounds good.
sounds good.
Any agenda items for the next meeting?
We're gonna be reviewing the bids for the bridge
Okay.
construction.
Thanks for
Good
coming.
night, guys.
Hopefully you're keeping the lane open.
Yeah, okay. No comment.
Okay, now. And then we needed to sign these minutes. Sign in your spot, not wearing glasses again.
Angela's pile.
And do we have an executive session? Do we need anything tonight? Okay. All right. And we said to Keith, if we had some deliberation, we would postpone until the next meeting for him. But we'd have to really review something with you. Okay.
You're doing once.
See you, Dave. Thank you.
See you, Dave.
I think we're set, Patrick.